Boys, tomato sauce in here, and it's been a little while. I apologize for that. My whole family, including myself, has had the flu. I am absolutely smashing pediatric electrolytes to get my head back in the game, go back to work this week, and grind out some content for the channel. Tonight, what we're looking at is the ultimate tier list for 10.0.7 solo shuffle gameplay. It's the #1 way to play rated arena in World of Warcraft right now. 2s and 3s is a dead and dying bracket. Unfortunately, I miss it because I have two friends. We love jamming 3s together. But unfortunately, solo shuffle seems to kind of be sucking the life force out of 2s and 3s, and you get a lot of great casual content and casual gameplay out of that bracket. It's a lot of fun. I hope Blizzard ends up adding some incentives to make people want to go back into like rated 3s arena gameplay. I think it's a piece of the game that's vital to the long-term health of PvP, but solo shuffle's here. It's popular and it's a good time, although a bit tilting. And if you're trying to figure out what class to play in solo shuffle, right, as we go into 10.0.7, or if you're just, wanting to see where I think your class stands in the solo shuffle bracket tier list of life, right? We're going to do that on this video. Now, before we go forward, boys, about 90% of you haven't subscribed to the content here. If you haven't done that yet, it's okay. I don't even dislike you that much. But if you click like, I'll stop saying this in the beginning of my videos. Like, subscribe, interact with the channel. We appreciate it. Without further ado, let's get right into it. And we're jumping into my absolute favorite class in the game right off the bat. Frost Death Knight. Frost is getting some great changes coming into 10.0.7. The tree's getting restructured in a way that's going to make it a little bit more forgiving. You're not going to just have to waste a talent point to play two-hander. You get biting cold much earlier in the tree now. A couple other changes here and there that allow us to take ice cap, which makes our go about 45 seconds now as opposed to 1 minute. So there's a lot of cool stuff happening for Frost DK. You're still kind of on that disarm cooldown, right? But for any game that they don't have a disarm, your goes are now full on 45-second goes. They're going to be packing an even bigger punch than they did now, and you're going to have some more Frost Fever damage to kind of smooth out your damage profile a little bit more. You still have the same weaknesses that you've always had, which is, physical DPS classes with disarms. But we'll see what else happens, right? Blizzard's making a lot of changes. I want to put Frost in B tier, but if Frost is played right, and you set up those double grip goes, right? You stand on top of one player, even a caster cleave triangle, you can do this, right? Frost is A tier, by the way. We're just going to get it out of the way. I'm going to stop with the suspense. Frost is 100% A tier going into solo shuffle 10.0.7. All right, that's what we're dealing with. Frost DKs, get ready. It's your time to shine. But let me tell you about the Frost DK Go real quick. Even if you're on a triangle caster cleave, if you run double grip, here's what you do. You stand on caster A. You grip caster B to caster A. Boom, blinding sleet. Then you grip the healer on top of those dipshits. Boom, send out your Frostworm's Fury. Now you got 3 idiots stunned in front of you. You probably got Remorseless Winter ticking already. They're stuck in your Death and Decay, waddling out of it, and now you got a 3-piece and a soda chill streak go. Frost DK with double grip is looking damn good in 10.0.7. You're going to hit all 3 of those idiots with obliterates too when we come through in the patch. I could really kill the whole tier list here because that's how excited I am about Frost DK, but we'll keep going. Unholy DK is a solid A tier as well. I don't really think there's anything wrong with Unholy DK. I just think it's pretty underwhelming. I don't like that you have to press 7 GCDs to get your go rolling. And then, you're on like a 45-second timer from that point forward, which is kind of nice. I like those 45-second go windows. It's a little quicker than a minute. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of great utility. Unholy DK is still the king of twos for Death Knights, as Pet Kick and his 11 alts will let you know. But you know, whatever, right? It's A tier. It's kind of a boring spec to play. There's no like high skill setup with Unholy. There is, but it's not as high skill as Frost. I think Frost, the fact that you are the rogue, the mage, and the priest all in one character, right? You're doing the whole RMP setup yourself. There's a little bit more skill to getting a Frost DK go off than there is getting an Unholy DK go off, which is really just like summon all your pets and cause disruption and insanity. So both A tier, both looking great, coming in at 10.0.7. Havoc Demon Hunter, I think it's firmly S tier in solo shuffle. I don't even think I would call it S tier. I wouldn't call it S tier in the traditional threes bracket. Definitely S tier in twos. But in solo shuffle, it's absolutely slapping. Has one of the most fun goes, period. You know, going into your immolation aura, into your fell rush, getting momentum up, eye beaming, coming in hot with the vengeful retreat, into the throw glaive, into the hunt, into essence break blade dance. That is a super strong go. And yeah, it's in a great spot. It's definitely the top of melee for solo shuffle. Has great survivability, blur on an extremely low cooldown, darkness for those oh shit moments when you're willing to roll the dice, and some great leech capabilities. So yeah, Havoc, I almost called it Havoc Death Knight. Havoc DH is in a great spot. Boomy, I think Boomy, see, I'd like to put it in the A tier, but I think it's just a middle of the pack specialization for solo shuffle. Triple melee lobbies can really punish you on a boomkin, whereas like a shadow priest has a little bit more flexibility with life swap, mind games, dispersion being a great cooldown. Grip. Shadow has the roots now as well. Boomy's not on that level, and if I put it anywhere but middle of the pack, I think I'd be doing it a disservice. A Mistweaver monk can completely obliterate a boomkin's go with the press of one button, and I believe it's up. I think revival's up for just about every boomy go. So if one healer can do that to you, and then other healers just with dispels can kind of take out your kill targets pretty quick just by dispelling all the dots. There's no penalty for dispelling a boomkin. You're a middle of the pack comp, or middle of the pack specialization. It's great damage. It's a lot of fun to play, but you are middle of the pack. Feral Druid. Where is Feral now? I think honestly, Feral's probably C tier for solo shuffle. They are extremely squishy, and they just they don't have everything that they used to, right? So they were coming out doing 70, 80k DPS before tier sets even came out, right? They were crushing. But now they're having to give up things to grab Cyclone. They aren't just the oppressive damage beasts that they were in the beginning. You have to be a much more finessing player to play Feral correctly. I think C tier is kind of underselling it. Feral's definitely B tier. It's middle of the pack right now. It's not 2 tiers under Frost and Unholy, because let's be real, Feral with the right person playing it can still shred Frost and Unholy. It's still a physical class. It does bleed damage that ignores armor, and it absolutely cracks. And an Unholy Death Knight can kind of get decimated by a Feral Druid because all of its pets just, allow the Feral to proc constant ferocious bites. So I wouldn't put it in the C tier, and I wouldn't put it in the A tier. I think it's a solid B tier specialization. I think the damage nerfs were a bit heavy-handed. Took Feral, from an S tier specialization down a couple notches. But yeah, I mean, I think it's in a fair spot now, but I don't think they needed to hit ferocious bite. If they were going to take out all the bleed damage, right? Because they did do 18% nerf to bleed damage across the board. They didn't also have to hit ferocious bite. but it's in a decent spot. It's middle of the pack. You'll definitely find success with it. You'll have no problem unlocking your transmog on any of the specializations in this game if you put a little bit of commitment to it. Yeah, I mean, it's just a spec that will require a little bit more commitment than it did before the nerfs, for sure. Restoration Druid, I think is firmly in the B tier. I actually play Resto Druid. It's my favorite healing specialization. You know, I don't play a ton of healers, but it's sitting in like the 1800 bracket right now, if I recall correctly. It's a good time. The only thing with Resto Druid is, one mistake that I see a lot of people try to make now is they get very aggressive on their Resto Druid as if this were another expansion where like you're trying to bash and clone and you know, set up these large CC chains. It's much more of a PvE style, you know, stay 40 yards back kind of healer now, where you're being very reactive to the damage and just trying to roll your like raid hots on players. Arcane mages hard counter Resto Druids. Luckily, you don't see a ton of arcane mages out there, but when you do see them, they will completely counter a Resto Druid's, you know, hots. So that's another downside of Resto Druid. Kind of sucks when you get an arcane mage in the game and they you know, they know what they're doing, and you watch your team just, you know, fall, which has happened to me quite a few times on my Resto Druid. But I think it's a middle of the pack healer. I wouldn't put it in C tier. I think it's decent. It's a fun healer to learn on. It's just kind of boring right now because you're not going for the same CC that you were going for. If the opportunity presents itself and your boys are topped off, go for it. But more often than not, it's probably a mistake. It's better to just heal on Resto Druid. Devastation Evoker, man, Devastation Evoker, I love playing this class. It's probably the class I'm worst at in this game. No joke. I'm a perma melee kind of guy. Here's the problem with Devastation Evoker to me, right? It plays like a Frost Mage, but it doesn't have spammable CC, or at least the way I play it's like a Frost Mage, and maybe that's why I am not playing it to its full capabilities. I don't really like the Feed the Flames build. Maybe I'm playing it on hard mode. I do more of a Disintegrate style build that works out for me, but it's pretty tough in solo shuffle because you go into these triple melee lobbies on Dev, and it doesn't feel that good, right? Once you're out of your hover charges, the knockback, I think Dev needs a talent to make the knockback like double the distance or something similar to Typhoon, because for the cooldown that it's on, it doesn't really do enough. A warrior's just going to double charge you, a demon hunter's going to be right back on you, a rogue's just going to step to you, you know, etc. There's too many gap closers in the game. Monk can Tiger Palm from that distance. So you got a lot of chips stacked against you when you're playing Devastation Evoker. But one thing I will say is, when you get your go, right, whether you play the Feed the Flames build or like a more Disintegrate focus build, like higher right side of the tree focused, you can do some crazy shit. When you play the Disintegrate focus build, you actually have like a go that can flatline somebody every 30 seconds. It's just about getting that damage off. So it's pretty cool. What you're going to do is you're going to Shattering Star, then you're going to get your Empowered Blue cast off. I don't even remember what it's called. And then you just go into 2-channel Disintegrates back to back. And it's a blast. Maybe I'll put a little guide out there on that Disintegrate focus build if you're not finding success with Feed the Flames, or if you're not finding success with either. But I think it's kind of C tier right now. I don't think it's in the best spot. It needs something. It feels like it needs something. Maybe Sleep should be spammable. If Sleep was spammable without the cooldown, you would be able to, I think you'd be able to do more. So yeah, I think Dev is C tier. Preservation, on the other hand, I think is solidly in the B tier. You have a lot of maybe it's even, no, I wouldn't say it's A tier. It's so susceptible to purges. You do have a lot of answers on Preservation Evoker. Yeah, I think just for the fact that you can get through the first 2 goes with just your cooldowns alone should make Preservation A tier. It's in a really good spot. I think it's in a better spot than Resto Druid. It's less punished by purges and kleptomanias, spell steals than Resto Druid is. It's still punished by them, but it also has, big cooldown answers that aren't just about like propping up your hots, right? They have more NS regrowth style answers than Resto Druid does, unfortunately. So yeah, I think and they come out and they do damage, right? Prez can actually just win a game being super offensively. I think it's A tier for sure. It's definitely a tier above Resto Druid, talking it out and breaking it down like that. BM Hunter. BM Hunter's damage is so oppressive right now. I actually don't think there's another tier you could put BM Hunter on. If you have half a brain and you're playing BM Hunter to its full potential, you have the 4-piece. You number one, you should almost never get touched by a melee, right? Between Steel Trap, the Tar Trap that roots now, your disengages, your feigns. You can actually kite forever on this class now, keeping concussive shot up on them. The consistent damage is absurd. Can't really go wrong with BM Hunter. I see people that don't know how to play it, completely struggle bus on it, but it's super, super good if played by a good player. If it's not being played by a good player, you could easily move BM down to D tier, because this is the majority of BM hunters you find. And then this is where like the cream of the crop BM hunters lie. So let's move it to A tier, right? We'll average it out at the A tier. It's definitely not a B tier specialization because it cracks, but it's A tier. I'd say it's A tier for sure. Survival Hunter, I think, is in the same spot. You either have terrible survival hunters or godly survival hunters, like, Big Mex and random survival hunter number 32 that hits 2100 with a bow only. But no, I think survival's a definite A tier specialization. It can dictate the pace of a game better than even BM Hunter can, because traps are kind of free on survival. And you have the ability to just like ping pong between the enemies, right? So let's say a warrior pops his cooldowns. You're playing against like a warrior and a lock. You happen to be on the warrior for a second. You can just spearhead over to the lock and then friggin' harpoon over to this guy. You can stay away from people, which you need because cooldowns on Hunter are not that great, defensively speaking. So I think BM and survival are on about the same tier. And I'll be honest, I'd put Marksman right there also. I think Hunter is overall in a great place right now. Marksman absolutely cracks. You really bang on Marksman, and I'm super excited to play some Marksman before the season is over. I was playing it before the nerf, but then, myself and my family got sick this week. So we had a terrible flu. We've been kind of out of commission for like the last 4 or 5 days. Now that I'm back in and I'm about to start catching up on work, this week I want to start playing around with my Hunter a little bit when I have some time. I think Marksman is in an awesome spot. Cracks. I think those damage buffs were perfect at giving them just a much more sustained damage profile. I'm actually glad double tap is gone from the tree now. It was really overkill. It was overkill. They didn't need that. They needed more sustained damage, and they absolutely have it. And they are pumping now. If you have a Marksman Hunter in the lobby, you almost have to go the Marksman Hunter now and try to keep them on their toes, because if not, and you just let them free cast, you are letting some damage get off, and it is not going to be good for you. Arcane Mage. Yeah, we got a lot of A tier specs. I think that means the game is actually in a good spot, because I usually don't like putting specs in A and S tier, right? I like to try to make it a little exclusive. But Arcane's in an awesome spot, man. It does some crazy damage. It's pretty much an unhittable spec, I like to call it. Very difficult to get any uptime on it as a melee. Your resident perma melee idiot would know this. Yeah, it's in a great spot. Damage is incredible. Very, very, nimbly bimbly, if you will. A lot of movement on Arcane. Spell steal, hard counters, evokers, klepto, hard counters, evokers, and resto druids. So you can really, drill into those kill targets when you see some big hots get off on them. And then you give them all to yourself too, to top it all off. You're not just removing the hots in one button, but you're taking them all. So if you were the kill target, which you are a lot as Arcane, you're now, you have their team's biggest heals on you as well. So yeah, Arcane's in a great spot. Fire Mage I would put in B tier. I feel like Fire Mage has some limitations that Arcane doesn't, but I also know that a well-played Fire Mage is a force to be reckoned with. Just watching Zico stream, the guy makes Fire Mage look like an S tier specialization. But I see some of the shortcomings that the class has, as he kind of outlines them on his stream. I think it's a great spec. I think it looks a lot of fun. I think it's very interesting now that Fire Mage rarely casts Fireball. In the games I watched Zico play today, I could count on one hand the amount of times he pressed Fireball. So if you want to play a mage spec that does not cast, apparently Fire Mage is it, right? I noticed he would cast Fireball to bait kicks to poly people, but he never had to sit there and cast Fireball because he was short on, like fire charges or any of that. I think he's filling, Flame Blast or Fire Blast, I think it's called, and Phoenix Flames as well. I think what he's doing is getting his damage out, right, with his instance outside of his combustion window and within it, and then just filling the time in between with polys, and Rings of Frost and Rings of Fire, so that he doesn't have to sit there and hard cast Fireball, which I thought was an incredibly smart way to play the class. Even makes me want to pick up Fire Mage as an alt before the end of the season's over. Frost Mage I'd probably put in the same tier as Fire. I think they both have their shortcomings. Fire definitely has less shortcomings to me than Frost, and here's why. If you get kicked on Frost, right, a Frost Bolt or a Glacial Spike while the other team's going on you, you don't have a defensive anymore. As a Fire Mage, if you get kicked on fire, right, you can still ice block. So I would definitely put Fire a little bit ahead of Frost, just for that reason alone. I've seen too many Frost Mages in my time, like, get kicked on an opener and just flop because, got frost locked on the biggest cooldowns in the game and the healer didn't press any buttons, so I guess I died. So yeah, I have a lot of fun on Frost Mage. I usually don't get kicked on Frost in openers because it's something I've always looked out for, making fun of my friends that it's happened to in the past. But yeah, I would say they're about even. Definitely Arcane Mage is a little bit ahead. I think AWC and just running into Arcane Mages in solo shuffle kind of show that, though. The Arcane is so strong right now. Mistweaver Monk. Mistweaver Monk right now. They're about to get buffed. So we're talking 10.0.7. 10.0.7. I'd put them ahead of Resto Druid and of just Resto Druid, I guess. Yeah, I think they're probably on the same tier as Evoker. Definitely a tier above Resto Druid, a tier above Holy Paladin, maybe 2 tiers above Holy Paladin. Yeah, I think Mistweaver's in a great spot, and I think they're only getting better. For some reason, they lend themselves to being a really good shuffle healer, whether they're going traditional Mistweaver or Fistweaver. I think Fistweaving to 1800 is probably easier than Mistweaving because you're going to get more melee heavy lobbies at low CR. And then as you get up past, like 1900, 2K, you'll see a lot more caster heavy lobbies. That's what I notice, at least. Yeah, so I think Mistweaver's in a solid spot. I would put them in A tier. They're definitely not free games against Mistweavers that know what they're doing. Whereas sometimes you hard swap to a Resto Druid after he overgrowths on another target and you just body him. Windwalker Monk. This is going to be a hot take. I don't think Windwalker's that good in solo shuffle. Maybe that's like just the people that I've seen in queues. But even watching Zico stream today, he was streaming 3K games all day. The Windwalkers in his games were not that great, man. I know they're up at that rating, but they were the definite weak links in the chain, in my opinion, in most of those games. I think Windwalker's a middle of the pack specialization. The playstyle is way too hit and run. Does a ton of damage every minute. Outside of that, you know, it even with the quick swaps, like it's got to run away because it's too easy of a kill target. You just go the monk, put all your damage into the monk for as long as you can, and they're going to fall over. So middle of the pack, I think. And I think that's also a reason you see a lot of like the lifelong Windwalkers like Drake and Chun-Li playing assassination rogues in AWC and not, you know, blasting on their Windwalkers. It is just not in a great spot right now. Holy Paladin, I got to put it on C tier. I don't think they should have nerfed what they did. The fact that they made their biggest cooldown cost 5 holy power is actually kind of a throw. I don't understand why they would have did that. I was going to say fist weaving Holy Paladin, but melee Holy Paladin was in a great spot. Then they nerfed it, and they you know, made the melee wings take 5 holy power. My best friend plays Holy Paladin. He was in love with it, and they killed it on him overnight, and he's pretty much disconnected from the game over it. So hopefully you guys at Blizzard fix Holy Paladin. I don't know why melee wings should cost 5 holy power. It's absurd. That is an absurd requirement to an insanely fun way to play the class. Yeah. Holy Paladin C tier, maybe even D tier right now, in my opinion. Retribution 10.0.7. There's only 2 ways these changes could go, right? Red is getting some insane changes. Ranged abilities, a fucking leap. They're getting it all. I'm going to do a hot take here. We know what the changes are. They're not even all live yet, right, on the PTR. I think in this rework, Ret goes to S tier. Here's why I say that. They're giving Ret a little wall, which is something Ret has always needed, a non-bubble wall. So you get that little 20% DR. You have your Ret shield now, right? Your I got 2400 on the class. I don't even know what the hell the shield is called. Avenger shield. And you have your bubble, right? Now you also have Bop on top of that. Okay, so you got 4 big defenses at that point. Now they're giving Ret all these crazy ranged abilities. They're giving Ret, you know, when Wings is up, 40-yard range. They're getting rid of some spenders and consolidating. I think they're getting rid of Seraphim, which has always been so annoying to press. I think Ret's going to come out banging. I'll be honest. I'll probably end up playing a Ret but before the end of the season just to unlock the transmog and try out the new talents. I think it's going to be banging. I think Ret's going to be S tier in 10.0.7. I don't think they're going to rework a class and it's just going to be dog water. I think it's going to be way more powerful than it should be at the beginning, and it's going to absolutely knock people's heads off their shoulders. And then they're probably going to nerf Ret like 2 weeks later. But for the first 2 weeks, if you have a Ret at 70 geared, you're going to have a lot of fun. That's my opinion. Discipline Priest. There's only one place to put Discipline Priest when you're talking in regards to solo shuffle, and that is firmly in the S tier. It's too damn good, right? It brings all the damage. It brings many, many walls, right? You have Dome and 2 pain suppressions. You have Rapture, and most of all, your CDs are reset every round, right? All healers are, but your CDs are not affected by dampening, and solo shuffle dampening is forever ticking, essentially. So Discipline Priest is firmly in the top spot just for that reason alone. Yeah, it's in a great spot. Holy Priest, I'd put C tier. I've seen that there's like a few good Holy Priests out there, but there's way more bad Holy Priests than any of the good ones that I've seen. I've never won a game with a Holy Priest. Let's put it that way, right? I know you're out there. There was just a post on World of PvP about a 3K Holy Priest or a 2.7K Holy Priest. You're the man, my brother, but your spec, I don't know how you're doing it, because these guys down here are in like 2100 to 2400 land, they suck. So you keep doing it up at 2700, but down here with the Peziantes, that, you know, there ain't no good holy priests. It's funny you're on the Maestro's tier, right? Because your spec is a Peziante spec. Shadow Priest. We got 2 priest specializations in the S tier, boys. Shadow Priest is absolutely slapping. It's got all the answers. It brings mind games into the game. And the funniest thing that I've seen is, since there's so many discipline priests right now and so many shadow priests, you actually get in these scenarios where the discipline and the shadow priest are so hungry for the kill that you see a target on your team with 2 mind games on them. And you're like, Jesus Christ, what an oppressive thing to happen to this poor guy in this solo shuffle game. So yeah, mind games is still crazy, and because there's so many discipline and shadow priests, we got 2 times the flavor and 2 times the fun in the S tier. Yeah, just a great spec overall. Again, they get Void Shift as well, which is, you know, it's insane that that's just a class talent for priests. It's so good. You know, it's a lay on hands, reverse lay on hands. Nobody ever swaps to the guy that they shift. It's very rare that it happens and it results in a kill anyway, especially if you're playing melee cleaves and they're spread. So yeah, Shadow Priest in a really good spot. Sin Rogue with the nerfs, I think it's still S tier, and here's why. Here's why. Is it in solo shuffle though? Because this is about solo shuffle, right? It's not about AWC. Is it? I mean, so by putting it in A tier, I'm saying that Assassination Rogue is on the same level as Frost DK, Unholy DK, and all the hunters. I think I'm right. I don't think that's a bad call for solo shuffle tier lists. Sin Rogues, they work with more comps than subtlety. They have great control. They have one of the best mortal strikes in the game. They have disarm. They have, yeah, they actually have everything. So we're just going to drop them up to the S tier. I don't know what the fuck I was thinking. Assassination Rogue is firmly in the S tier, 100%. Yeah, that's it. That's pretty much that's all there is to say on Assassination Rogues. Deathmark, you know, there's a lot of dwarfs, Dark Iron dwarfs, and evokers out there, so you can get away from Deathmark. But Kidney Shot is still on a 20-second cooldown, so every 20 seconds, somebody can die if a Sin Rogue is in the game. Kidney Shot's super oppressive, and I think that's where they're going to eventually have to go to lighten Rogue's grip on this game. Because right now, we all are running around with like 15 to 20% CC reduction, and it's still oppressive. So I think the only thing to do to loosen up the stranglehold that rogues have on this game is to move Kidney Shot from a 20-second cooldown to a 30-second cooldown. I think it's more than fair. I think giving them 2 kidney shots a minute is still a hell of a kill condition. I just don't think they get it every 20 seconds where they can use them defensively or offensively. It doesn't matter because it's coming up again in 18 seconds, right? So Kidney Shot, if it gets moved out to 30 seconds eventually, would put all the rogues at the max A tier, I think. But I don't think Blizzard will do that, which I don't know why they wouldn't, because Kidney Shot's really just a PvP ability. It's very rarely used in PvE. It makes sense. Kidney Shot should almost just be a PvP talent with a 30-second cooldown. Hire me, Blizzard. Outlaw Rogue. Man, I don't even see these guys. I don't know what planet they live on. I've queued into like 2 or 3 and mollywop them. I know they got some changes from Shadowlands when they were like the most oppressive class ever because of all the cooldown reduction they had, but it kind of murdered this class or this spec, which is fine because sub and assassination are still insane. But yeah, Outlaw. Get out of here. Subtlety Rogue. For Shuffle, man, they're not even B tier. Sub Rogue in Shuffle is kind of trash. I'll put him in C tier. Sin Rogue, at least you know you're in there, you're in the mix. Sub Rogue, you're all burst, and I don't know, for some reason I just murder sub rogues. Does anybody have a ton of problems with sub rogues? I know they can kill you in a duel after they get your trinket, but yeah, I don't know. I don't think this is the spec to bring into solo shuffle. They usually don't do very much damage. They'll win a game or two randomly preying on some dork that they, kill in a duel, but outside of that, I don't know how these guys climb because kind of trash. Ellie Shaman. Ellie Shaman's A tier all day. I'd almost probably silly to not make them S tier. A tier, S tier, A tier, S tier, A tier, S tier. Technically, they don't have to cast, so I think we're going to go S tier with Ellie Shamans. In a shuffle environment for sure, too, right? A lot of people will try to train the Ellie Shaman, but all they have to do is keep running away from you and abusing instant casts, getting procs of Lava Surge, and blasting your team with massive lava surges into instant earth shocks. An Ellie Shaman that can kite is probably the most oppressive force you can have in a solo shuffle game. Very, very difficult to combat. They're going to be doing minimum 30-40k DPS, and just coming out with massive 150k, 110k earth shock. So you got to watch out for these guys. Train the Ellies into the ground, boys. Enhancement Shaman. I would say it's B tier. It's probably C tier. No, because look at who's on the C tier, right? Devastation Evoker, H-Pal, Holy Priest, and Sub Rogue. I could definitely climb easier on Enhancement Shaman than any of these classes. Maybe because I've played Enhancement up to some high ratings. So that's why I think that way. But I think Enhancement brings more to the table than any of these guys do in a solo shuffle game. It's got the same problem that Elemental does, where a lot of people are going to want to train it. But Enhancement can kite too. And if you play smart on an Enhancement Shaman, you can wrap people around pillars, go into an Ascendance Doom Winds, and just absolutely blast them behind that pillar. So Enhance, I don't think is in a great spot. It did get a little buff, or it is getting a little buff with the Healing Surge buff that's coming out to the class. So that'll be, 10% buff to the baseline heal for Enhancement Shaman. So they'll have to use less Maelstrom on healing, hopefully, right? Because that Maelstrom is going to amplify that baseline buff on Healing Surge. I think B tier is a safe bet. You wouldn't have any issues hitting 1800 in solo shuffle if you have if you have any experience on the class. That's usually like my baseline gauge of if the class is playable or not, right? Can you just take it straight to 1800 in a session or two, and unlock your transmog and then go do another one, right? That's kind of the way I like playing alts. I'll go to like 1800 2k and then jump onto another one, and go learn something else and mess around with that. I only really push one or two classes every season, and usually it's DK or DH or DK. Sometimes Ret too, though, because I'm a perma melee, baby. That's what I like doing. Resto Shaman and solo shuffle. I would say it's C tier. It's above H-Pal. It's getting buffs, actually. 10.0.7. It is getting buffs. It's better than Resto Druid, for sure. And 10.0.7, it's definitely better than Resto Druid. I put it on the A tier. If that's my gauge, right? Put Evoker back here with the healer boys. But if that's my gauge, right? If we have like H-Pal and Holy Priest on C tier, Resto Druid as the middle of the pack, and then these three guys that I think are a little bit better than Resto Druid in a solo shuffle, I would rather have all three of these healers on my team than a Resto Druid in shuffle. Especially especially Shaman once we move into 10.0.7. Right now, I'd rather have Resto Druid, so if the tables were turned, it would actually look like this. But I think going into the next patch with the buff Shaman's getting and some of the damage that it's bringing, it is some pretty oppressive damage that it can bring to the table. Yeah, if your healer can do damage, you're higher than Resto Druid right now. Resto Druid can heal really, really well, but it doesn't really bring the damage to the table. So any healer that can kind of has to be a tier above it, except these guys, because kind of lame. Aflock, I don't see Aflocks doing very well in Shuffle. The ones I queue into, I hard body them. Whether I'm on my Evoker or one of my many melees, right? Stable of melees in this game that I have. I just run them down, right? On a caster, I attack them as if the same way as if I was on my warrior, right? Like my arms warrior. I'm just out there to completely blast any affliction lock. These guys do 0 damage. I think it takes way too long for them to get their damage ramping. I have seen some really good ones do some crazy shit in a shuffle every now and then. But yeah, man, I don't know. Maybe they're not outlaw rogue tier. Maybe they're C tier, but they're not that great, to be honest with you. Demo lock I'd put in the middle. These guys don't do a ton of damage either. Their go is so televised, but they kill people randomly because they're tanky. And they can last longer in a game than other warlock specializations. But I really think they're middle of the pack. I think Demo Lock's kind of overrated. And I think Destro is firmly A tier. Destro is absolutely cracking. It's heavy instant cast now, which is pretty different from where it has been in the past. You're really only casting Immolate, Fear, and Chaos Bolt. But yeah, man, when you see a Destro lock, throw down a casting circle and you're out of your stuns and disruption, get ready for 210k plus Chaos Bolts, about to hit you in the mouth. Destro is pretty cool. I think it's in a good spot with Shadowburn coming back in the way that it came back as these 2 instant charge like 50k hits along with your incinerates. And everything else Destro brings to the table, you're in a pretty solid spot overall. Arms Warrior. I think Arms Warrior, boys, firmly in A tier, which I think this speaks to the balance of this game right now, right? What really needs to happen is healers all need a buff, or damage needs to get toned down overall by like 10%. But Arms brings the one of the most oppressive mortal strikes in the game. You can keep MS up on a target almost indefinitely. Sharpen MS every 30 seconds. Great burst, whether you're playing my bleed build or the spear build. It's just a very oppressive specialization. And it does well into anything as long as it's in the right hands. So yeah, I think Arms is in a great spot, and I think it deserved the tuning that it got, but all the tuning did was take it down from an S tier to an A tier specialization. Still very, very strong though. Fury Warrior, man, I don't think Fury's in that great of a spot. I really don't. I don't think it's going to be in that great of a spot coming into 10.0.7 either. I know it just got some buffs, but it doesn't have the burst Arms has. It's just a lot of sustain, and they're a very, very easy kill target. It's strange that it feels like Fury is an easier kill target than Arms to me. I play both, and I just don't feel as comfortable on my Fury Warrior as I do on Arms. So for me, I feel like Arms is just up there at a higher tier. Maybe because it feels like Arms does more damage while you're in defensive stance as well, whereas Fury is just kind of like full on cucked, even though you have defensive stance and cruelty rolling in those scenarios. You're not there. Anyway, guys, this is what I think the tier list shakes out to. in 10.0.7. Revisiting our S tier, we've got DH, Ret, Disc Priest, Shadow Priest, Assassination Rogue, and Elemental Shaman. And below that, boys, we've got the rest of the game. So if you play a Demon Hunter, the reworked Retribution Paladin, a Discipline Priest, a Shadow Priest, an Assassination Rogue, or an Elemental Shaman, you are absolutely at the top of your game. But if you're playing anybody, any class that's in our A tier, I'd say you're in a pretty good spot as well, guys. So that's what I got for you. Thank you so much for watching the video. I know it was a long one, but I wanted to go a little bit more in depth on these class explanations. If you made it this far, guys, subscribe to the channel. I appreciate it. Have a good day, have a good night, have a good week, and have a good year. Tomatosaucin out. Retribution Paladin in 10.0.7. Frosty K2.